Yo, 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 welcome to the Black Superheroes MatterPodcast. I'm your host, Stephen Christian, back with another episode. And today we have Dawud Anyabwile, and he's the creator of Brotherman Comics. You can find him at Brotherman Comics on Instagram, on ArtStation, on the website. He's a entrepreneur, he's a creator, he is a illustrator, and he's one of the people that I grew up just following his work as a Black comic creator with this comics. And so we had a great conversation. He definitely dropped a whole bunch of good gems on us just about what it's like to be a creator in the 90s and owning your own work and having a legacy and really just exploring Blackness as a medium and creating under that banner. And so it was a great conversation. I really hope you all enjoy it. And without further ado, let's get it started. I wanted to take a break from the episode to let you know that we have some merch that is available. Over at Iltopia Studios, you can find the Black Superheroes Matter art book, which is a collection of illustrations that reimagine your favorite superheroes through the eyes of children of color. We also have a bunch of sticker packs, over 120 different sticker designs of your favorite superheroes. More importantly, we have our Color Me Super coloring book series. Definitely check out the merch at shop.iltopia.com or blacksuperheroesmatter.com. And now, back to the episode. Welcome to the Black Superheroes MatterPodcast. I'm your host, Stephen Christian, and today we have Dawud Anyabwile. And thanks for joining me on the podcast, man. Like it's a lovely, into winter, like early spring day. And hopefully the sun is shining out where you're at. It's definitely shining out here. And yeah, how's everything?
Everything's good. I mean, we got rain. It was a nice week, and then today we just got the rain, like you were talking about, and the temperature drop. But that comes and goes. So I'm good.
Nice,
I'm good.
Nice. Yeah, it's in Portland, you never know. Like you'll wake up, it's a wonderful day, and then tomorrow it'll just be torrential rain, and it'll be like that for weeks. It's just like, man. But yeah, like where are you located?
I'm in the Atlanta area. I'm in DeKalb County, which is right outside of Atlanta.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like whenever people say they live in Atlanta, it's kind of like when people say they live in LA, where it's you
have counties.
Yeah, so many areas, and so you thinking like, oh yeah, you right next to Hollywood, and then you on the other side in like the IE.
Yeah. Yeah, Atlanta's like that. The Atlanta metro area, you got so many surrounding areas, and I mean, I'm originally from Philadelphia, but I've been here since 2000. So,
Okay. Yeah, because I, when I look at your work, it gives me that sort of like Northeast vibe, like New York, Philly. And so when you say Atlanta, I was like, maybe it was just like something that he was inspired by. But no, it makes sense.
I came up in that madness. Philly, Philly's right next to New York, and majority of my family, like my parents are from Jersey City, which is right there at the base of. Actually, Statue of Liberty is in Jersey City. A lot of people think Statue of Liberty is in New York, but it's actually in Jersey, and that's really where my family's from. So we spent a lot of time there growing up, and Philly's only 90 miles away, and I was kind of always in that vibe growing up. Just it's kind of like congested, but at the same time, you have so many different types of areas. It's not like it's not monolithic.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Like you can go to the grungy, grimy areas, and then you can go to the real plush areas. And I have friends that live in all different types of social classes. And for us, it was just like normal. Everybody's not the same. You know what I mean? And that's why I always wanted to. When making the comic book, that's what I brought to the comic. Even though it was the universe we created was called Big City. Big City was an amalgamation of those experiences that we had where, some people think, oh, it's an inner city comic book. And it's like, nah, it's about a universe we created, which has all different types of areas, and all different types of social classes, all different types of personalities. But what made it different was that it was a Black universe.
Yeah.
but it was an alternate dimension. And that was something that was unique back then. And I think to this day now, I still really haven't seen something that's executed the way that, me and my brother were actually going for, what we actually produced then. But I can elaborate some more. That's kind of the intro.
Yeah. I mean, and so to that point, I think, like, what do you do as a creator?
You mean like in general?
Yeah.
Well, wow, that's kind of a broad range because right now I do, I'm independent, so I do independent contract work. So I've done children's books. Actually, this one just came out, Becoming Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
By James Patterson and Kwame Alexander. So this is like basically a huge book that's out there right now. Another book, Crossover, I don't have it in front of me right now. It's a teen reader by Kwame Alexander, and that's published by Houghton Mifflin. I just completed another book for them called Booked. It's like a children's book, but it's about soccer. And I'm about to embark on another project that I just signed on for. And these really just kind of came up, like these books for publishing companies, because I also do, our own books. And these are the books that my brother Guy writes. The Cold Hard Cases of Duke Denham.
Okay.
This is book number 2. I think this is book number 5. This one just came out, number 7. And this is number 3. And these are novels.
Okay.
But these novels are all from the same universe as the Brotherman graphic novel.
Okay.
It's just, these aren't illustrated, but it's all from the same universe, but this is from a time period before this time period. And because it's an ever-expansive universe that we created in Brotherman, and Brotherman is just one story that takes place in the universe.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So I also do like storyboards for film and television. Like I just did a couple episodes of Black Lightning, just storyboard, pre-production work, Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie, Goosebumps 2, The Quad on BET, Valor show that ran on the CW. I'm trying to think what the other one. Oh, Bobby Brown's special. Like there's quite a few. Like those jobs, they just kind of come up. Hey, there's a production going on. Like it could be a major motion film or it might be a television series. And to me, those projects are cool because they don't really take a long time. I might work on them. Maybe the longest might be a month, or it might be 2 weeks on a project. Sometimes just a couple days, and it's good for your credits and stuff like that. But ultimately, my objective is to continue building Big City Entertainment, which is a creative arts and animation company, which is Brotherman's like the vanguard to the production studio. That's our main intellectual property.
Okay, so it's like the Mickey Mouse for like
Disney.
Disney.
It's the Mickey Mouse to Disneyland. Exactly. I always tell people, I said, think of Brotherman like the Mickey Mouse to Disneyland. So while you're looking at Mickey Mouse, in Walt Disney's head is Disneyland, Disney World, all these other things before it actually manifested.
Yeah.
But people think the extent is just what they see in front of them right now. And I'm like, no, ever since I did Brotherman, the objective wasn't to make a comic book. It was to create intellectual property that can become like anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that becomes the pioneer to all these other stories and brands. And then you move into another space of production and ownership and things of that nature, making our own films. Because that's what we always did when we were teenagers. Like back in the 80s, me and my other brother would make stop motion films, with armatures. In the music production, I was DJing since I was in high school and making beats and things like that. And I also like film scoring, like collecting film scores. And so to me, Brotherman was a way to take a concept and make it epic. You know what I mean? So, because even in the journey of Brotherman, we had like a lot of movie deals from the early 90s. I'm talking before a lot of the Black superhero movies even came on the scene. We were negotiating with major production studios. But for one reason or another, we didn't sign deals because it's like, that's not what we're trying to do, or somebody trying to clown what we're trying to do. It's like, I don't care how much money I'm getting. If I can't hold my head up when it's created and be proud of this, I don't want to do it. You know what I mean? And, I would say, hey, I grew up a fan of George Lucas and, just epic films. And when you're doing and at the time we came out with Brotherman was like 89 and it came out in 1990.
Yeah, because I know it's been around for it's been around for a minute.
Right. So when you think about that time period, like for me, I know how it was back then where nobody was really talking black superheroes like they're talking now.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And then if you had black superheroes, they were the black superheroes made by the white companies, like Luke Cage, Black Panther. But it wasn't Luke Cage, Black Panther like it is now. It was like comic book heads knew about Luke Cage and Black Panther, but the general audience they weren't into it. And I know that because back then, I collected comics in elementary school, so I had my share of Marvel. But you'd be like the corny guy because you like comics.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? Like that's how it was in the '80s. But then when I got into DJing and all that stuff, like I was pretty much done with comics, but I still liked the format of sequential art and storytelling. But I was more into film and special effects and theatrics. So when we did Brotherman, it was kind of like tongue in cheek. Oh, let's make a comic book, kind of like not really taking it seriously of we're trying to make a superhero. We said, all right, this guy, he doesn't have superpowers. But by the time we got to the third issue in 1991, we were up to like 40,000 books. And we said, wait a second, we can make whatever we want to happen in this book. So we moved away from that, because really in most of the books, Brotherman rarely appears in a costume in the books. Like the true Brotherman fans, they could tell, like, hey, it was really more about character relationships in the book than a superhero, because there was no superhero in the book. He's not a superhero. You know what I'm saying? It was more like a man who taps into his inner power, like your spiritual power, almost like a Shaolin warrior, or a Shaolin monk, or a Shogun warrior, or something like that. Somebody who they don't have superpowers, but in a way they are supernatural because their discipline is so refined.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of us don't have the discipline to refine ourselves. That's why we called it Brotherman, Dictator of Discipline, because he's like the master of discipline.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that was still ahead of the times. I remember coming out with that, and you have to try to explain to people what that meant, because some people, they were just tripping like, a black comic book. What? Like when we first came out with it, we introduced it at the Black Expo in New York. And I remember people, they thought it was a print, because back then people were used to buying prints or, African garb or incense, when you go to black events. Yeah. And here it is, we got a comic book. And they were like, people were like thinking it was a print. And they opened up and said, oh, it's a comic book. What? And I mean, the feedback, plus, you have social media. So people, they were more focused on new things. Mm-hmm. And the way the music was during that time, hip hop was new. There was all this new feelings of things like, that's new, that's raw. This person has their style. That person has their style. Everybody wasn't trying to be like each other. Everybody was trying to do something different. So when Brotherman came along, that's why it ended up being like a catalyst to this movement of black comic books, because a lot of people were inspired to I want to make my own comic book. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then what we did in terms of our distribution, we bypassed the comic book industry. Like we were hitting like the black expos, which they're not really around now, but back then they were jumping like in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So we would sell like, in the first year we did 30,000 books in the first year. And I think we were closing on 40,000 books.
Wow. Just the first year.
In the first year. When nobody even knew who we were.
Just over there hustling.
Just selling books. And it wasn't just at the Black Expos, because what we did was we were my other brother Jason, he was handling like the production management. My brother Guy Sims was the writer. I was doing the artwork, and collectively, we were all kind of playing our parts. And what me and my brother Jason were plotting out was, let's hit the Black bookstores, basically places where our people go, but there's no comic books there.
Yeah, like it. I think that
like barbershops,
yeah,
beauty salons. Like now, that's kind of more commonplace, where to go there and get your Black comic books and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But and there's not as many Black bookstores as there were back then. Back then, it seemed like it was bigger. It kind of fell off a lot of those places due to different reasons. But we got a lot of support from those places, so we may sell more books to a Black bookstore. Well, most of the time we did, than a comic book store. So we would sell to comic book stores, but they were always secondary. Like, oh yeah, we'll sell to y'all too, because I noticed in that era, like 80s era, like I have a friend, Reggie Byers, who he's the one who actually put me on, like showed me how to do comics. He was the first brother I knew. No, actually, the second brother I knew that was doing comics in the 80s. And Reggie, he did a comic called Shuriken. The name of his company was Victory Comics. They were out of Norristown, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. And I met him because I used to airbrush at the mall in Philly. So I met a whole lot of people downtown. And I was like, man, a brother making comics? And his comic was about a Japanese girl, but it was these brothers that made these comics. And before him was another brother named Dwayne Ferguson, who made a comic called Hamster Vice. And that was in the mid 80s. And me and him went to Rutgers University in New Brunswick. I didn't know him too well then, but I was blown away that a brother was making a comic book. And it was kind of on that vein of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because it was during that era. So Brotherman came out on the tail end of all that, like the black and white comic craze. And some people were saying like, oh, comics won't sell. They're getting into video games and all this. And I said, well, maybe comics won't sell, but we're selling Brothermans. We were selling Brothermans like crazy. And it was a black and white book, $2. Nobody knew who we were. And by the following year, it was highlighted on Arsenio Hall. We were on America's Most Wanted, like John Walsh. They did like a 5-minute segment on us and saluted Brotherman Comics. And it was historical because it was, I think, the only America's Most Wanted episode where it wasn't about tracking a thief. It was about a crime fighter in a comic book, and they thought it was important for inner city kids to know about it.
Interesting.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah,
so that really hit that void where they were like, yeah, that's impact right there, right?
Yeah. Like, and this is like 91, 92.
Oh yeah, so this is like in the middle of everything. Right? Like this is in the middle of everything.
And so imagine like if we had a website back then or social media, like there was no, like say if you're on America's Most Wanted, it's not like at the end they give your phone number or something. So people that watch it, then it's like, well, where do I get it? You know what I mean? So it's like there's more people that knew about Brotherman than we're actually selling to. So even though we were selling hundreds of thousands of books, we probably would have been selling millions of books if we were really touching all the people that knew about it. Because we'll be at comic conventions and people come up and say, yo, that's a book Arsenio Hall was talking about. I didn't even know it was real. They thought it was a joke on Arsenio Hall. And they say, yo, this is real. So there was really more people that knew about it, but it wasn't like a push of, now go to brothermancomics.com and order yours today. The sales probably would have went crazy back then.
Yeah.
But, it's cool. That was all that was part of the journey. You know what I'm saying? So I know I'm kind of jumping around because it's a lot.
I mean, it's a lot of stuff because this really parallels a lot of the stuff that I was doing where, I literally hand make my books and I got a printer. I know how to illustrate. I write. I literally hand make the books and sell them out of my apartment. That's how I got started. you know,
So
and so to that, I was just like, the thing that really got into my mind was just like, you know, where were you getting these printed? Like, I know, like, you guys were bootstrapping this, and this is in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm fortunate enough to, like, we got technology, we got print on demand, we all got all that stuff. And so I'm able to make it do. But, like, if I didn't have the access that I had to things, you know, I could only imagine pushing 40,000 copies. Like, where, like, how is that, like, what was the team like? Like, where did you have a printer on hand? Were you like, what was this like?
Well, that's the thing that I've tried to explain to people. Like, at that time we came out. See, it was Reggie who told me about the book printer, because back then, there was no on demand printing, and your average printers didn't print comic books.
Yeah.
You know, they printed books, but they didn't. They said, you need a web press to make comic books, and I was like, "What's a web press?" You know, and they said the way that it's bound and stuff like that. And there were only a few comic book places, or at least this is what we were told and what we were able to find. Because, we couldn't get on our phone and say, hey, tell me where I can get a comic book printed. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We didn't have that. Even if you went to the library had old information. The library didn't really have like an up-to-date, here's where you go to get comic books printed. So the information that my man Reggie got was because he used to work at Comico, which was a comic company in Norristown. And then he basically learned things and then went out on his own and created Victory Comics. And then he told us what he did and gave us some of those, this is how you can hit up. There was a printer in West Virginia, and they're the ones who printed the first runs of Brotherman up to number 4. And then when we got to number 4, we used a printer in San Antonio. I think he gave us a better price. But outside of that, we didn't really know who else to go to other than places in Canada. And that just seemed so far away. Like, I'd rather get a place printed here. And then you had to get your books printed. The reason why we had such a high volume of books is because back then you had to order books by 10,000 at a time. You couldn't order, like now you can get one book made.
Yeah, you get one book made and that's it.
You had to get 10,000 books printed, which is like 500 per box. So there's like 30 boxes like this that get shipped to you yellow freight. You get these big yellow freight trucks, big giant yellow freight. And at the time we had a custom airbrush shop in East Orange, New Jersey. East Orange, a small town right outside of New York City, and little narrow streets, and this big giant yellow freight truck pulls up, because we didn't know what 10,000 books looks like.
Oh, so you didn't even know what you signed it up for.
Yeah, and by the time they unloaded all those books into our store, there was no room in the store to do any business. It was dang. We said, hey, we might as well shut down the airbrushing and just do comics, and that's how Big City Comics started.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. We said, so much for the business, the airbrushing. Let's just do comics. And comics was new. It was fun. It was exciting. And we knew we were stepping into new ground. And we said, okay, since the Black Expos had just started, they just started in 89. And me and my brother went to the 1989 one. And we said, man, we need to have like a comic book here. Because what we used to do was, for the airbrush business in Jersey, we would make a comic flyer and pass it around in the neighborhood. It's, just little characters talking about, hey, I got my shirt made here, blah, blah, blah. Go to Novelties. That was the name of our store on 273 North Grove Street, East Orange. And so we saw how people responded to the flyer. And then we said, man, we need to have a book. So this was in 89. And then my brother Guy, at the time, he was living in Delaware. And Guy was always a writer. He was always the writer of the family. And so it was just natural. Hey, Guy, we want to make a comic book. You want to write it? And he said, yeah, I'll write it. And Guy didn't collect comics. He wasn't into comics. He just said, yeah, I can write a comic. And so he came up to Jersey. We all had a meeting. And I had a character in my sketchbook called Brotherman. But it wasn't nothing. You know how you can sketch a character, and it's like it has no background, no story. You don't even know why you drew it. and you may not even do anything with it. And then Guy said, he started coming up with yeah, okay, we could do this. We got to have him have like an occupation that could probably connect him with crime and stuff like that. Okay, let's have him as a public attorney. And they said, yeah, and we got to have a sister in it. And then we came with Melody Rich. And then, okay, and his boss, who's his boss? And Duke Denham was actually a character that my brother had from a story back in the 80s. And he was a frog detective.
A frog detective?
In the original stories, he was a frog detective. It was like an anthropomorphic detective story named Duke Denham. And I always liked that name, and I liked the stories that my brother did. They were like hilarious, but at the same time, they were like mysterious. And then he said, okay, well, and he doesn't do anything with Duke Denham. Let's make Duke Denham the character. You know, he's going to be the DA. And that's how we came up with the Duke Denham character. So it's kind of funny going all the way back then to now we had the cold hard cases of Duke Denham.
Yeah, there ain't no frogs in it.
Yeah, no frogs. People don't even know that story. I think that's a real gem right there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's...
Yeah. And so the thing is that what I tell people, too, is like, you know how it's like how you say, like, now you can make all your books at home. You know what I mean? Like, like I knew a brother who... He got the thing where he can print his books himself. I guess, you know, you can print at home now. You can do this. You could do that. You could ship. Like we had to always go to UPS. We were shipping books by the hundreds on a daily basis to UPS. And now you can have so much stuff is more convenient now.
Oh, yeah. Like I just got like one of those little label printers and I got stamps.com. And so the only time I actually have to go to the post office is if I have to like send one of those large packages that won't fit in the little mailbox.
That won't fit in the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you got your website, you got blogs, you have Instagram, social media. So those are the pluses that you have that for us back in 1989 we didn't have. But then the pluses I would say back then that I contrasted here is that we had focus back then. Now you're competing with everybody else who has access. You know, you're a musician. You know, back in the day, a musician was somebody special. You know, oh man, this person can rap. You know, like he's LL Cool J. Everybody go to LL Cool J concert. You know, but now it's like everybody raps and makes their track on GarageBand or whatever, and they got an album out in a week or
right.
a day. Made a track. You know what I'm saying?
Make a song in like 30 minutes and then.
Yeah. So the thing is, not to say they're not special, but the idea back then of somebody making their own thing was special.
Yeah.
Like everybody in the neighborhood wanted to know that person. That person would be like a street legend because they're doing something that everybody doesn't do. You know, even when we were making stop motion movies, like making little clay characters move little by little, you may find one other kid who lives a couple blocks away. You didn't know him, and somebody said, yo, that kid down such and such, he makes those movies too. And then it's like, man, I want to meet him. I want to know him. And then there's like a big deal to meet that person. You're kind of nervous meeting that person. And then you meet him, and then y'all become friends. And all the kids in the neighborhood will come to see the premiere of you all making a new claymation movie.
Yeah.
You know, because nobody does that and nobody knows where to go. And people are like, how did y'all learn how to do that? But see, that was the mind state back then for music, the art, the culture. You know, when you made a movie, you just showed it to your neighborhood friends. Now, when we make a movie, the world sees it. And we got people in Russia that we're talking to, people in Japan that we're talking to. When it's just like, what? How they got people? I can imagine if I was able to play my movies around the world back then. So that's why I say it's like I think in life, there's kind of like this conversion. There's always a conversion that makes things great within its time. Because I tell people, I said, no, I'm not the greatest artist in the world. I said, I think everything converged at the right time to make this what it was.
Oh, yeah.
So when I tell people what we did, there's things that we did then that would still be helpful now. But also remember that in your time, even with the things that I would say would be a pro or a con in our time, you may find something that connects in your time that it can only have had happened. It can only have happened right now with you.
Oh yeah,
Like people can't really mimic it.
Yeah,
You know,
that, like especially and that happened for me last year because I got into like the AR stuff. So like I'm a augmented reality developer and I do it specifically for like Black storytelling in comics and like in AR and stuff. And so a project that I did, I just said, hey, you know, like because Portland was sort of in the limelight for a whole bunch of different things last year, and so I was like during that time, I made like an experience, made this 30-foot sort of statue in AR, and I just went around Portland and just did an installation around it. And the best part about it was because it was technology, you know, like I didn't have to get a permit for it. I didn't have to do all these things, but like the pictures and all the other stuff existed. And so it just like that caught wind and, you know, went around Twitter and everything. And before you know it, like the Wall Street Journal reached out to me. And so then it was just like, you know, like doing these things because of the time that we're in, because I was in Portland, because I was talking about these Black issues and sharing it. It all just sort of like happened at once. And literally like the next 3 months after that, I was like, that was the most busy I've ever been. Right. Prior to that, I was just chilling. Right. Like I was doing nothing. I was just sitting at home. I was sitting at home trying not to get sick like everybody else. But it changed, you know, like from there, it really changed a whole lot of things, you know, changed the pathway. Like the idea was still there, but like the idea of like using storytelling and immersive technology to, you know, talk about the Black experience. Prior to that, like it wasn't a thing. And so it was just crazy to see like how things changed just by just to that point, just like doing things and just sort of brainstorming ideas and just like expressing yourself. And it's, you know, it's great. But I think to that point, cause I'm really good friends with David Walker and every year, like literally every year I've been trying to go on that, like, you know, that Black comic circuit, like in January. Right. And, because prior to that, like I didn't like, there aren't that many conventions, you know, there aren't that many like expos for like Black creators and stuff. And so it's like, you got the Schaumburg and then you got like the Black Comics Festival and, the San Francisco thing. And they're all on like the same weekend. Like it.
Yeah. They're the exact same weekend. We did, when we came out with the graphic novel, my brother Guy did Harlem. And then me and my friend Brian McGee, who did the color work on the graphic novel, we did San Francisco. And it was the same weekend. And those are like the biggest shows happening right now, even though, you know, there is Onyx Con here in Atlanta. Then you have ECBOC in Philly, Motor City, MechaCon. You know, there's other events happening. And then there's other ones that popped up. I think there was one in LA. I forgot the name of it.
There's a lot of them that like popped up a little bit, you know, how we had that huge resurgence of like conventions, but they were really short lived. Like some of them only happened like 1 year and then like they just didn't pop, like they didn't come back anymore.
I think really with a lot of it, because what made the Black Expos different and unique during that time, and I think also what helped them is that it's the marketing. However they were budgeted for their marketing, because they were always advertised on Kiss FM in New York. So like New York is like the hub. And like I said, that's New York in its jumping era. So a lot of people would show up and people there, they were there to buy Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a comic book event. It was Black commerce event. So we had a comic book. So in itself, that has a unique place. Yeah. So then when other like Black comic creators were hitting the Black Expos as well, because there were other brothers that were and sisters that were on the scene, they did extremely well because the people, you know, there was no middleman to the people. You're dealing directly with the people. We were picking up stores like distributors while we're there, you know, so after the expo, you'll have somebody call you up. Hey, I need 100 of each book. So if you have 5 issues out, they want 500 books. A bookstore may say, yeah, we want, you know, can you send us 25 of each book? Because for them, that might be equivalent to like a Superman, ordering Superman, Batman. So they think our book is a hot seller compared to those. And we're like, that's not a lot compared to how we're selling to these black bookstores and individuals on the street who didn't even have stores. They were just getting them in barbershops and selling them on the street. And they say, yo, I need a couple hundred more books. That's how we were selling. That's how we got to close to 1 million books independently. You see what I'm saying? And that's just between 1990 to 94. So the only reason why Brotherman, it didn't stop. It didn't fall off. Brotherman stopped because my mother passed when issue number 10 came out. And, you know, we're a family business. We weren't financed by anything. You know, everything was, it was basically just us. So then when my mom passed, it was almost like that kind of came out of nowhere. And we were doing the Black Expo New York. So we had to shut down the show. We lost money that weekend. And that was 94. That's when we were like hitting the apex. Like we're about to break through to go further. And then when she passed, we had to shut everything down. And then the following year, we opened up Big City Comics World Headquarters in Philly. And we were continuing with Brotherman number 11. And then my dad died. And then when he died, it was like everything just disbanded. And people were still trying to get Brotherman books. You know, we was doing art classes in our store, but we had to shut the store down and everything just stopped. And that's when I basically had a career change. A friend of mine called me up from New York and said, hey, man, I got a job for you as a character designer on the Pink Panther CD-ROM game. And that came out of nowhere. It's just because I knew dude. And I was just like, man, thanks, man, because I didn't know what I was going to do at that time. You know, because I was basically a street artist that made comics. And then when the comics were moving forward, you know, like I said, we had movie deals with Motown, Columbia Television, Saban Entertainment that did Power Rangers. That was actually the first. And so many others in between. You know what I'm saying? I sat down with Lauryn Hill, even Sam Jackson wanted to do something at a time. But, you know, for one reason or other, certain things didn't work out. And it wasn't always negative. Sometimes it was like, it was just maybe the timing of something or this or that. And each one is a story in itself. But it's just to show the impact Brotherman made and how far it penetrated and how many people were inspired by it. But with me personally, I wasn't going to just sign something for the sake of signing it, because the way I feel like, especially like when you have black productions, people have there's a stigma to black productions because there's so much stuff out there that's just, they go in the direction that you wouldn't go. Like when they say, oh, is this like Undercover Brother? Oh, is this like such as a, you know, where they're using the N word and all this other stuff? And I'm like, you know, if other people want to do that, I said, that's not what we do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's so easy for people to think that's what it is and make it that. And I was like, no, this is another dimension. This is not New York City. This is not Philly. Their politics are not the politics that's going on in this world. You know, it's like Star Wars and somebody saying, hey, is George Bush in Star Wars? No, because it's another dimension. It's a galaxy far, far away. How's George Bush going to be there? So in Brotherman, some people say, hey, I remember being at an expo and one brother said, is the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in your book, brother? And we said, no. And he took that as a like, why is he not in your book? You know what I'm saying? I said, because this is another dimension. He doesn't live there.
It's just like, it's apples and oranges. What are we talking about?
But see, when you talk about early 90s and you're coming with something like that is like so forward thinking in terms of there's nothing to compare it to. Yeah. Because what we're doing is something like when we had the negotiations with Motown, and they said, what would you akin this mostly to? Like, what would you say this is most like? And I said, oh, man. I said, the closest I could think of is The Wiz and Star Wars. And they were trying to figure, like, how do you say it? I said, because The Wiz, it was an all-black cast. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was mythological. It was like New York City, but it kind of wasn't. It was like a dream the way they did it. And I said, so Brotherman, I refer to it as dream state mythology. So it feels like our world, but it's not our world. They're not on our calendar. They're not on our
it's
clock,
dystopian.
Politics. But it has the soul. Like you would be in there, but it would just be an alternate type of presentation of you. When you go outside, the visuals and everything would be astounding because it's sort of like what you know, but it's not what you know. But because there's nothing you can compare it to, this would pioneer that. You see what I'm saying? And I said, so, but the thing about The Wiz is it's the Wizard of Oz. So you already know what's going to happen at the end. Brotherman, you wouldn't know anything about. That's what makes it even more fantastic. It's like Star Wars. When Star Wars came out, you had no gauge because we just came out of like, you have to compare that to 2001, A Space Odyssey, Silent Running. I'm trying to think of movies that were out in the 70s and the 80s. Silent Running, Space 1999. And then Star Wars came out and it was just like, actually all those other movies, even Star Trek, it was always the future of our world. Mm-hmm. And in Star Wars, the first sentence is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And you're saying, wait, it's spaceships. It's supposed to be the future. So he already messed up your equilibrium of how we think. And I said, okay, well, Brotherman's like that because some people think Brotherman is the 90s or the 80s or the 60s. And I said, no, it's another dimension.
Yeah.
And in that dimension, we play with the time. We play with the inventions. We play with the music. There is no hip hop in their world because there's no Grandmaster Flash. But there's music. They cut it up. They do all these other things, but they use different types of equipment. It evolved differently. So it's basically like your soul in another dimension. You would still you still have some soul. You would still do this. You would still do that. But a lot of what we do is a reflection of what's around us. But the soul, your soul can be in another dimension somewhere, and it can have the same type of swag, but the swag is in response to its environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of remember this movie called The One with Jet Li?
I saw it a long time ago.
Yeah, that reminds me of it, where it's like there's different, the whole purpose of that movie was in these different realities, there's the same person. And so, if that person goes to the different realities and kills the doppelganger, then he gets more power. And so he was bouncing from one reality to the next, and you would see the same person, but like it's a different variation of that same person. One will have like spiky hair, another one will be bald, another one will be fat. Like
exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And see, because like I said, me and my brothers, we were into sci-fi. We were into like all this, we're into mythology. Then also like, I like hip hop, but I also like things like, like my dad, I always respected things that my dad taught me about, he's more like a researcher on African history, not just African history, Black history. And my mom was more like creative. Like she was the imaginative. Like she's the one who had me, because she was a musician. She played the piano and she was into orchestra music and things like that. And she would have me listen to orchestra music and say, what do you see in that? So to me, I would pay homage to orchestration as well as hip hop and grimy underground beats, but then have to be responsible because of the things that my dad taught me. So it's like, just because it's grimy and underground doesn't mean I have to be self-destructive and demeaning.
Yeah.
Because that's the vibration. But some people, they think in order for it to be grimy and underground, I gotta curse you out and talk about foul things and disrespect your girl and all. I said, that's not what makes this track hard. What makes the track hard is the vibration and the construction and the what do you call it? I'm trying to think of the word. It's on the tip of my tongue. I'm thinking of it too hard. The flow, the rhythmic flow.
Yeah, like the melody,
like you can take somebody who raps like Biggie, but they're not rapping about the underworld of Brooklyn. But if he raps just like Biggie and he's rapping about something else and his flow goes with these hard beats, and and whatever. But he's talking about something that kind of has you reflecting on your life, or he's rapping about his family or something like that, and it's just hard. Like, you see what I'm saying? You don't have to rap about things that are self-destructive for it to be dope, but there's this thought in our minds that that's what makes something dope because we've been programmed that way.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like this movie, I think it would, in order for Brotherman to be produced, it has to be people who understand that concept. Cadence, that's the word. The rhyme flow. Cadence. So there will have to be people who understand, like, oh, this can be something that's dope. It touches on all these different levels, but the underlying theme lifts you up. Like, you come out of this like transformed, like, because that's what the whole Brotherman Revelation graphic novel is about. Because this is the origin of young Antonio Valor and the revelation about how he went from this young kid to tapping into this power. Because a lot of times, a lot of us don't like to admit it, but a lot of us have insecurities. We think that other person is cool. I'm not cool. Oh, that person is talented. I don't have that as much talent as that person. When you're a supernova. Yep.
Like, even to the point where even if good things happen, you'd be like, you have that imposter syndrome. Where it's like, that was just a fluke.
A fluke, yeah.
That's not because I worked hard for it.
Yeah, it can't happen twice.
Yeah.
Because you're not realizing, like, you are the master of your destiny. Like, you have a God power within. It's like, and that's what this is. The Brotherman Revelation story is about the manifestation of that God power within, because it goes from different levels. Because the first story is about his father and how his father didn't know who he was. He was an abandoned child, and he grew up basically a child of the streets, and he ran with the gangs. But it's not a gang story. Like, I don't want people to think, oh yeah, it's gangs, whatever. Is it Blood versus Crips? No, this is 456th Street Strong Arms and the Wayne Bay Brawlers. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because Wayne Bay is it's all on the map. Like, so if you look on the subway map, they're called Wayne Bay Brawlers because they're from this section of Wayne Bay, and the Wayne Bay is the body of water on the right side of Big City. We have all that mapped out, so it all makes sense in their world.
And you got the map. Like, it's like it exists because it's right in front of you.
It's in front of you. They have their own currency. And there's a history on their currency that goes back to the history of their nation, of their the building of their city. So they're not African American because it's not Africa and it's not America. So some people will be like offended, like, oh, they're not African American? Calm down, relax. They're just people with their own history.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like we can accept Lord of the Rings, and like I said, like Luke Skywalker, he's not European because he's not from Europe.
Yeah.
But he does have the attributes of a kid that you might know here, but that's not him. That's not his reality in his world. So that's the thing about Brotherman that I feel like when I was telling people about it a long time ago, I said, this is more like science fiction than hip hop. But at the same time, yeah, it has those elements of hip hop, but it's not hip hop. It's more like mythology. It's mythological, and that's why I've always been particular about if it's going to be made in a movie, because some people, they want to, cheap budget. I said, no, it has to be a big budget because there's no Nike, there's no Adidas, there's no, like, you have to make everything. The designers in the movie, the industrial designers creating every little gadget. That's what makes the movie amazing. But now with, and you're saying, with doing the AR and stuff like that, more people are receptive to that because the average movie coming out now has an amazing world created.
That's the expectation.
So we were kind of ahead of the game trying to explain that to people, because now people see more Black people in video games, in amazing worlds with, they know it's not planet Earth. We see all that now. we were trying to explain that to people way before all that stuff was happening.
Yeah, you trying to explain that to people 30 years ago, and
Exactly.
they ain't got no cell phones. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, man.
And so now there's still another layer to it because we're talking about the whole spiritual aspect of it, the whole upliftment of it. Because somebody might see, within Brotherman, there are areas that look like it's downtrodden, but they're missing out on the fact that, but there's also areas that you probably couldn't afford to live.
Yeah.
Because that's where the old money is. It's a city like any other. You go to China, they have the junks, they have those congested areas, but they also have the place that the money, old money.
Yeah. And often it's all like right there, right? Like if you literally going over, literally like you go across the street and you're in a whole completely different area with a whole completely different tax bracket and everything. And it's like, and that's what I at least grew up in, where it's like, I knew that I couldn't go to that area right there because something might happen, might get like, it will just be on the radar for people. And it's only like 5-minute walk away,
Exactly. And see, and that's why I felt like when we were doing this, especially in that period of time, a lot of media projects that whole Good Times, Jefferson's concept during that era. Either your Good Times or the Jeffersons. Like you're moving on up, living in a plush of luxury, or you're living so down low that there's no hope for you.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of in between, and there's a lot of expansive. You see what I'm saying? Well, what about people that live in an area where it's almost like the country?
Yep.
Where are they in this?
Where's the farmers? Where's the people just living off the land?
Agriculturalists. You know what I'm saying? Your herbalists, holistic healers. In Brotherman, it's like all those elements you're bringing in. Imagine them all being in a film, and this film is taking you through all these different emotions and all these different places. And I said, until I can really execute it like that on that level, I don't really want to. I don't see myself dumbing it down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's too many things that are connected to it. So.
Yeah, man. Hey, my hat goes to you because, I think growing up, I remember Brotherman comics and then this comic called Chocolate Thunder. Chocolate Thunder. The only time I ever saw that was when we would go to the African shop in the mall. That was the only time. And and I remember sometime either last year or the year before, I was like, man, I just want to just see if that because when you're a kid, and you remember things, but things are skewed or they don't when you see it as an adult, you'd be like, that's not what I remember. So in the back of my mind, it's like, I haven't seen an issue of that, or I haven't heard any reference of it for decades. And so for me, I was like, I just need to see if that was actually real, and for you, I follow you. So I know okay, Brotherman, that existed, but this whole Chocolate Thunder thing, man. And so it just really brought me back to during that time, you're right. Things were the idea of supporting Black businesses and supporting sort of just Black creativity. It was different, it
special.
It was special. I think now we're starting to see a resurgence of that because the 30 years that passed sort of, just, a lot of people just fell victim to just the realities. And so, we're starting to see a resurgence of it, but it's different though, right? It's not that same sort of, it's just not the same. And so, what it sounded like from just everything that you said was, this is for you, you were a creator, but a lot of it was just you just navigating, just being an entrepreneur, and I think that, I think it's very, being a Black creator and being an entrepreneur, that often there's a lot of blurred lines between that because, in order for you to sort of get your work out there and be unapologetic about, who you are, you actually have to just go out on a limb and just, do it yourself and show that there's a market for it. And I'm seeing that with the work that I'm doing, and it's good to sort of talk to somebody that's sort of been through that and saw the opportunities that came from it, because it sounded like you just had an idea and you had a dream and you just pursued it.
Well, I also have like behind me says "Drawn from the Soul."
Mm-hmm.
Okay, "Drawn from the Soul." That it actually began as a art instructional video I did in 1999 when my sons, they were little fellas back then, and I remember I was living in Jersey at the time, and what sparked that was, say if I'm in Chicago doing a trade show, and then we're in LA or somewhere else, and people would say, "Can you teach my baby how to draw?" You had all these people that had these children that wanted to draw, and back in those days, it was harder because we didn't have social media and stuff. It was harder for like parents to find like mentors for their youth, who want to draw cartoons and comics and things like that. And the thing is, I would tell them, I say, "Hey, I live in, at the time I might lived in Dallas at the time, or I lived somewhere else." And I said, "Hey, I'd like to teach Junior, but I don't live here." You know what I mean? But I would go home always thinking about that little kid and saying, "Well, what can I do to help that child?" And I said, "I'm gonna make an art instructional video. That way I could be, teaching them in their home on a video." And at that time, I didn't know of any black art instructional videos where you see a black hand teaching. You know what I mean? Like we had Bob Ross. There was some other ones that I had, and those were good videos. But I said sometimes it's important for us to learn from us. It's just something about you seeing somebody that looks like they could be your father or your brother or your sister or your mother or something like that, and they also skilled in teaching you something. Not to say, you can't learn from other people, because I think learning is learning, but there's also balanced learning when you learn from those like yourself. So Drawn from the Soul was kind of twofold, because number one, it was to reach those children. And then number two was to teach my children how to make a product. So I would sat them down and say, "Hey, y'all, we're going to make an art instructional video." And, at the time, my youngest son, I think he was 3. And the older one was 8.
Mm.
And then we came up with the name, and I said, "Drawing from the Soul." And I told him it's a double entendre. So it means drawing from the soul, but it also means to pull from the soul, to draw, like you were saying, like to step out on your own and be confident in who you are. You don't have to apologize for who you are.
Yeah.
You're telling your story, just like when you go talk about how great George Lucas or Steven Spielberg or whatever, they're great because they're telling their story. But you're great when you tell your story. You don't always have to give them praise. Yes, respect to them, and Stan Lee and all that. But you're great. You know what I'm saying? So that was the whole thing. It's like, it's not just about teaching kids how to draw a picture, but teach them how to see themselves, see the power in themselves. And that's what Drawing from the Soul is. So even on my channel, the YouTube channel, it's still in the early stages. I just started it, so there's not a lot of followers and stuff. But it's not just drawing techniques. I might come on there and just share like maybe some passages from a book, like Teachings of Ptah-hotep. Hey, here's a proverb where they talk about, how to stand tall, You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's about feeding the mind, because drawing is the end product. You know what I mean? Like when I draw a character, that's the end product of what's in my mind. But if my mind is not strong in terms of my character and my being, my end result is going to be an extension of what I believe.
Yeah.
So if I think that I'm powerful, and it's like, well, Wonder Woman, that's what's hot, I'll draw a Wonder Woman. And you have a sister or a cousin who has the character traits of heroism, but you look past her because she doesn't look like Wonder Woman. When it's like, take your own family, man, make them the heroes, put them in the forefront, draw from you. We've already seen them. They've made their money. Draw from you and show us your story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Drawn from the Soul is. And that's what I try to emphasize to the younger people is like, yo, you have stories to tell. Tell your stories. Be you. I was just telling somebody about I went to do a outreach program at a prison in Philly some years ago, and I remember talking to the brothers in there, the inmates that came in. They were like artists and stuff, and you know, I was just sharing with them what I knew. You know, I didn't know how far it would be impacting or whatever, but I was saying, you know, everybody has a story to tell. I was telling them, all y'all got stories to tell. I said, hey man, when I did this, I said we knew we were going up against industry like Marvel and DC, and they didn't, everybody didn't welcome us into the industry.
Yeah.
You know, I told them, man, we got banned from Toys R Us. We got, you know, there was so many stories that I had to share. I said we got in Toys R Us, and then we got banned from Toys R Us around the same time Spawn went in, but he stayed in. I mean, nothing wrong with him. That's great for him. I'm just saying for us, we got it turned to a big mess with us. And I remember after making that presentation, they all of them on the way out the door, they was like giving me a pound, dap, saying, yo, I love you, man, like represent for Philly. And they said, man, this was really like it really meant something, you know, that I was in there sharing that journey, because I wasn't really talking to them about art. I was saying like art is one thing. I said that confidence in yourself and that knowing that value that's in yourself, like no matter what people say on the outside or what anybody feels about you, you have to know your wealth and your self-worth. And I would talk about that more than myself and what I'm doing. And then I don't like to put myself in a space where, hey, I did this because I'm me. And I'd be like, yo, I'm like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, we all, you know, it's like we all have a path. You have something to show me. We all have something to share with each other. You know, I'm just sharing what I have. Hopefully one day I'll be sitting up here watching, I'll be sitting in the audience watching you share your story.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And it's easy to just, and sometimes it's just sort of just like, tell us what you got, you know, show us what you got, express yourself. But really just that mental hurdle for a lot of people, especially Black people, like for a lot of people, just being comfortable, just sort of opening up in that manner is, you know, that's a journey, you know, and because like we all know artists that like have great technical skills and they could do all these great things, but if they're not in the space mentally, they're not creating nothing, you know. And I think for me it's when I got into it, because I got into art because I played football. I had hip reconstructive surgery, and then I couldn't play football at that point, right? So then it was just like, dang, you know, I needed to find something to sort of balance me out. And so I just got into drawing and I got into storytelling, and it was really just therapeutic for me, you know? And so like once I felt comfortable, I just started posting stuff and sharing stuff with people. And as I progressed and felt more comfortable about myself and put that into my work, you know, then like things got better, right? Like, you know, started getting a following, all those different things. But it really started from me just sort of focusing on myself and feeling comfortable with sharing who I am and my ideas and everything. And I think it's you know, that's often when I started talking to, you know, younger creators and stuff like that, you know, are inspired by the work that I do. It always goes back to that, like, you know, what is your why? You know, like what is the thing that like, you know, you want to see in the world, and what is something that like you can kind of contribute to other people to inspire them, you know, like those are the things that often I find myself saying, just because that's what got me into it. You know, that's what, you know, has had me go through all the ups and downs of being an artist. Right.
Yeah. That's what's up, man. But yeah, so that's pretty much, I mean, there's a lot more. That's why I say that, you know, whenever I'm sharing the journey, I sometimes wonder like what area do we want to go talk on, because so much stuff happened within this time then the post Brotherman years, working on the films and stuff like that. And then there was the pre-Brotherman years, in the 80s, and the graffiti culture and all that stuff. So it's like a lot, but I think for the most part, I guess people they'll get the gist of what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think definitely a lot of stuff that like we all just sort of grew up around, and and seeing it, like hearing it from a different perspective is always really interesting. One of the things, because we're seeing COVID and all these things, and sort of the resurgence of like Black creators sort of going out with Kickstarters and stuff like that, being more entrepreneurial, and for you sort of paving the way in many ways. What are the things that like you what are the things that like you would say to like a somebody that's branching out into the space, because as far as I know, I mean, we got Black Panther and we got a couple of movies, but like for the most part, like not much. Like it's still the same sort of journey.
Because that's not our institutions. Those aren't our institutions. That's like me and my brother always talk about ownership versus representation. Like, it's one thing to say, hey, we're represented in this movie. And for years, we've always been represented. Like, where we're in something, but we don't own it.
Yeah.
And we want to get to the point where we own the industry. We own the products that we make. We own the intellectual properties. So then we're the decision makers on what happens on these products. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always sitting around saying, like, I can't wait till they make this. I can't wait till they make Bishop movie, or it's like, that's still their property. Like, that's still the property of Marvel or DC. And I was like, I don't knock it because it's theirs. I'm just saying, let's make our thing happen. And like you're saying, now that a lot of people are home, for one reason or the other, like, some people, they just work from home. So now you're not losing a lot of time in traffic. That's hours that you have now to put into your own thing, to build your dream. I'm not saying abandon your job, because you need the resources to invest into your dream, but at some aspect, put some hours into your vision. And it's fun. You know what I mean? I think, to me, it's fun. Like, it's fun to create. Even if, say, I don't draw, but I'm a writer. You write down your ideas. You write poetry. You write lyrics for a song, or you're a musician. Score. If you're a musician and somebody who does animation, why don't you see if you can score their animation? Do it as a test. Next, y'all are forming a studio. And because there's a lot of people out here who are doing that, but there's a lot of people out here who don't. They may not get it, and I know that's not always easy too. Because to me, sometimes it is hard to pull people together to do things or get people on the same page.
Yeah,
but at least for yourself, like, all the stuff is at our fingertips now. Like, whatever we want to learn, we can just ask our phone for the answer. And then just go on a journey to figure these things out. Because like I said, we didn't have all this stuff back in the day, and one way or other, we figured things out, and it was fun trying to figure it out. Even if it was going to the library, we're sitting in the library going through books. That was still fun because we knew we were trying to find something. And then when we come across some information, like, oh, here it is. Then you call places up and say, hey, do y'all do this? Y'all do that? And they say, yeah, we do it. Then it's almost like you hit the gold mine, And now I think some things may be so easy for some people that they may not realize the value in what they have access to.
I think that's one of the things now, where there's a lot of people that know how to do a lot of good stuff, and for one reason or another, they just doing it for free. They're not expanding on it. They're not being able to, use that as a launching point for a lot of things. And,
indeed,
and I think we all sort of have that journey, right? Where we have to sort of reflect and see, like, what is the value of the stuff that we have to offer to other people?
Yeah.
There's
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I think just just a lot of the work that you're doing and just being able to share those stories and inspire people, both just explicitly and just through creative works. It's this is all part of it, right? Like this is
Yeah,
all each one teach one. Like
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, just keep doing your thing, man. Like
Yeah.
I grew up on it and I really appreciate it, and just hope to see it continue.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Well, that's what I'm trying to push for now. Is like I really want to get to the next level, which is animation. Because I look at every different stage in my life. I went from street artist, airbrushing on the streets. Even though I was a fine arts major in high school, and then I went from airbrushing to comics. And then really, when they start being a big push in comics, then it's like okay. Then I got into the production studios, and that was kind of like getting paid to go to school because I was learning about character design, background design. Basically directing and stuff like that. And then now, I'm getting the opportunity to do these, the children's books, stuff like that. And what this is doing is getting my name out there in areas that my name hasn't been before.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely a plus right now. And to me, it's all culminating to taking Brotherman and other related things into the next space. So that's another thing I tell people is like, enjoy the journey. Try to be patient with your life, because sometimes if everything doesn't happen the way we want right away, we be like, oh man, forget this, or you beat yourself up, and it's like you got to be careful how you talk to yourself because we may be so critical on ourselves that we put ourselves down, and that can diminish that power that we have within us. And it's like, say you're making comics and you're trying to be like Marvel and all them, but you were born into their legacy. When we were born, they were making millions.
Yeah.
Disney millions. It took years to build that. And then we have these other things that we fight against, even outside of just making comics. It takes time to build greatness. So our ancestors, they, just coming out of slavery and Jim Crow and all that stuff, that wasn't that long ago. So we're making great strides now, but we can't always think we're going to have everything done in this 1-2 year process. It may end up taking longer than you thought it would be. If you're one of the people that can get it done in a short period of time, cool. But if you're somebody where it's taking a little bit longer, then just enjoy the process. Don't beat yourself up, because it might be something that gets passed down to another generation or other people come on board and it continues. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I've come to the conclusion I can accept it. I enjoy my life, and if I can make stuff happen, have a Brotherman movie in my lifetime, that's my goal. If it's something that comes after I'm gone, which I'm not making that my goal.
You kind of want to see it a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. But I'm willing to accept that it could be something that can come in my older age. Mm-hmm. But it can be better than I even imagined because it had a chance to marinate.
Yeah.
And it wasn't bastardized because I just rushed to do it just to get some ends a long time ago to pay my rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It goes beyond just paying a bill, like this is a legacy. And, I think, me just got into medical school, but I've been trying to get into medical school for the past 7 years, and thousands of dollars, years, school classes, rejections, all those things. At the end of the day, as long as you don't give up, I mean, like, that's just half the battle right there. Is just keep putting on that hard hat and just keep working towards that dream. And I see just so many parallels with just the creative journey where, there's always going to be people that are going to be like, oh, I don't get it. This doesn't make sense. I don't see the value in it. And that just means it has to take a little bit more time to marinate so that when people do see it, it's a no-brainer. And and I think that just sort of just comes with just a sign of maturity, where it's just like you just sort of understand how the world works a little bit more. And the best thing that you could have is just time. And then time and effort. That's really what it comes down to. And I think everything that you said, I mean, that's just a testament to it, right? You know, you just put in the work, and so now you can just sort of sit back and just, you know, just let it all happen.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it at the time. Where can people find you? You know, like drop some links. Where's all the stuff that people can find you at?
Okay, well, my Instagram link is at Brotherman Comics, and that's Brotherman Comix. The website is brothermancomics.com, and that's Brotherman Comics.com. The YouTube channel that I have right now is Drawing from the Soul, youtube.com/Drawing from the Soul, or you just type Drawing from the Soul in YouTube search, and that'll pop up. You know, I have a couple uploads there. I'm still working some more. That's kind of a slower process. And let me see, what else? I don't have like a whole lot of social media. I'm not on Facebook anymore. But, you know, basically the main thing I tell people, just hit me up through Instagram.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, and also on ArtStation. Artstation.com. Just type in my name, Dawud Anyabwile. Dawud, Dawud. Last name Anyabwile.
Okay.
And that's kind of where I have more portfolio work on ArtStation.com.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So ArtStation, we got YouTube, and we got Instagram and the website. Those are the spots to go.
There you go.
We'll definitely put that in the description of the podcast and everything, and then yeah, you know, really appreciate the time. You know, really appreciate all the stories and everything that you have to share with us, and you know, just look forward to just seeing more work coming from you. You know, in a variety of different areas, especially the animation space. You know.
Hey, I'll be working on it. I'll be looking for your work too, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think at some point, you know, I definitely want to circle back and tap in with you because to explore some AR stuff, because essentially that's all it is just animation, just you know, tied to a physical product. And so since you got books, you know, you know, what would that look like to just bring the book to life?
Well, let's talk about it. 'Cause I got to show you also check out bigcitymap.com, bigcitymap.com.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a virtual reality big city space that we created in conjunction with Emory University Digital Design Department.
Nice.
So that's like 360 rotations, and it's supposed to be viewed in VR goggles.
Oh, nice. So, hey, technology, man. That's where it's at, you know?
And actually, if you go on ArtStation, I have more of the backgrounds are actually on my ArtStation, and you can scroll through and, you know, look around. It's like you're in the comic book looking around.
Nice.
But that's why I say we can talk about that too, because you might know some next level things we can do with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so with that, we'll call it a wrap. You know, again, appreciate the time, appreciate everything, and yeah, just you know, keep doing the good work, because it's this is what the legacy looks like in real time.
Yeah.
You know,
one step at a time.
One step at a time. Yeah. And there we have it. That is another episode of the Black Superheroes Matter podcast in the wraps. Again, the purpose of this podcast is for people to get exposed to a variety of different things that Black people are creating in the arts and entertainment industry. The goal is for this podcast to bring light to all those and those creators, because as a community, we have the opportunity to skirt some of the problems that we've seen in this day and age when it comes to expressing Blackness. And so if you love this, definitely check out the more work that we're doing. Go to @Black Superheroes Matter, or you can go to blacksuperheroesmatter.com to check out the blog and the write-ups that we do on these guests. And if you're so inclined, feel free to support my work at Iltopia, where we have the Black Superheroes Matter art book, the Black Superheroes Matter sticker packs, and even coloring books, activity guides. And so if you want to check that stuff out, check it out at shop.iltopia.com. It's all Black owned. I might add, they're all handmade products. And they're all made with love for the community that has really given me the opportunity to find my place in this world. And so, again, thank you for another wonderful episode. Thank you for listening. Feel free to follow all the stuff that Black Superheroes Matter is cranking out. And excited to share another wonderful guest with you on next episode. So without further ado, thank you very much.